بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
This refers to the ablution wudu that is well known. What makes ablution mandatory is hadith, ritual impurities. Its conditions are 10. The first is Islam, the second is sanity, and the third is age of maturity, the fourth is
Okay, just before we move on, a person asked, for the same reason, a person can recite Quran whilst major impurity. Dhikr. A person who is in major impurity, he cannot recite Quran. Quran he cannot recite. But if it's with the intention that it's a dhikr, like for example, we're traveling, Subhana alladhi sakhara lana hadha ma kunna lahu muqrinin wa inna ila rabbina munqalibun. That's in Surah Zukhruf, right? So even though it's an ayah, what's the intention there? The intention there when you're traveling is not, oh, I'm reciting Quran. What do you say to each other? You say recite Quran or do you say recite a dua? You say recite a dua. The intention is dua, that is allowed. Can a person recite ayah of the Quran in sujood with the intention of dua? Rabbi zidni ilma, for example. I don't get the link. Oh, okay, with the intention. Okay. Some ulama say it's allowed. However, the best, because you're not allowed to recite Quran when it comes to sujood, the Prophet said. However, the brother who asked the question, if it's with the intention of dhikr, some ulama say it's allowed. However, the best opinion is that don't. There are many other du'as that you can make, which are from the Quran and from the Sunnah, which are from the Sunnah and the Hadith of Prophet ﷺ. If you want to make this du'a, make it straight after Salāh. Just so you don't fall into the khilaf that this is the Quran, this is you're reciting Quran while you're in sajda. So even though some ulama say it's allowed, the best opinion is, the safer opinion is that don't. There's many other du'as that you can recite. However, as soon as Salah finishes, you can make as many du'as as you want. Now I'm carrying from where you left off.
These conditions are 10. The first is Islam, the second is sanity, the third is age of maturity, the fourth is intention, the fifth is accompanying its ruling by the fact that one must intend to not stop it until he completes his ritual purity. The sixth is removal of what makes ritual purity mandatory. The seventh is cleansing the private parts. The eighth, clean water that is permissible to use. The ninth, removing all things that prevent the water from reaching the skin. And the 10th, it must be the proper time for it. This applies to those who have a constant state of ritual impurity, i.e. such as menstruating woman, due to its obligation.
Okay, so now the Shaykh here, he mentions the conditions of wudu. Why does he mention the conditions of wudu here? What's this got to do with? Why did he mention it in this place here? Why didn't he mention it later, after he finishes the conditions of Salah? Why did he mention it here? The wudu comes before the Salah. But why specifically here? Why didn't he mention it after? That's the one. We're talking about the conditions of Salah, right? What's the first condition? Who remembers? Islam. Second? Aql, sanity. Third? Tamyiz. And then the fourth one? Raf al-hadath. Okay? Basically doing wudu. So because doing wudu is mentioned now... Water? Or microphone? Because wudu is mentioned now, due to munasabah, because it's a suitable time for it to mention, because wudu has been mentioned, so he's going to go into wudu and what are the conditions and the shurūt. Now he mentions the conditions of wudu. Now condition of wudu are how many? 10. Okay, the conditions of wudu are 10. And how many conditions were there for salah? 9. Okay, so don't get mixed up between the two. The first 3 that he mentions are the same that we've taken. Al-Islam wal-Aql wal-Tamyiz. Islam, intellect, and being the age of at-Tamyiz. Then the fourth, he says, an-Niyyah, which is having the intention. Having the intention that you are doing wudu. Okay, this is a condition, according to all of the ulama, apart from Imam Abu Hanifa. He doesn't say it's a condition. However, all of the ulama say that it is a condition. And this is, you might not necessarily think, because the niyyah, do you say it out loud? You don't say it out loud. It's in the heart. Okay, that you are doing wudu. The fact that you go up and you went to the wudu area to do the wudu, that's enough of an intention. Yeah? Because you know you're doing the wudu. But it's more apparent when, for example, a person, he jumps into the swimming pool, for example, and he comes out. Everything is washed. Let's say he jumps in and he washes goggles and everything somehow under the water, let's say, okay? and he does everything and he does wudu. If it comes out, then he says, you know what, it's Salah time. And everything's been washed. Is that accepted? It's not accepted because at that time he didn't have the intention. He didn't have the intention. And the intention is made where? It's made in the heart. It's not said out loud. And anybody says it out loud, it's a bid'ah and it's not accepted from them. Because the Prophet ﷺ, nor the Sahaba, none of them said the niyyah, said the intention out loud. The only time when the intention is said out loud is for Hajj. Labayk Allahumma, Umratan or Hajj, depending on what you are doing. And even then, that's not really an intention. That's just you proclaiming the fact that you're going for Hajj. Just like the talbiyah, like you say, it's just proclaiming and showing the symbols of Islam. This is the fourth condition. These four are quite straightforward. The fifth condition, he says, وَاسْتِصْحَابُ حُكْمِهَا بِأَلَّا يَنْوِيَ قَطْعَهَا حَتَّى تَتِمَّ طَهَارَتَهُ. What did he say here? It says in the English, accompanying its ruling by the fact that one must intend not to stop it until he completes his ritual impurity. This is, a person, he starts doing wudu, and halfway through wudu he says, you know what, I'll leave it, I'll do it later. So now his intention is that he's not going to do wudu anymore. But then he gets up and he says, you know what, I'm here anyway, I might as well finish it. Then he wants to go and carry it on. Then what does he do? He has to start again. Why? Because he stopped the intention of doing wudu. So he has to start all over again. And when it comes to this niyyah here, there's two. The first is doing the actual wudu, and that has to happen throughout the whole wudu. The second is that you remember the fact that this is an ibadah, and you're doing it for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is sunnah, that is mustahab. If you do that, you get rewarded. If you do not remember that throughout the wudu, however, you still have the intention that I'm doing wudu to pray salah, then that part is wajib. And that is what makes your wudu accepted. The sixth thing that he says is inqita'u mujibin. Removal of what makes ritual impurity mandatory. Meaning, what makes ritual impurity mandatory? Going to the toilet basically, or urine, thesis, or gas coming out. All of this makes a person do or need to do wudu. This has to completely stop before the person does wudu. And this, be careful, sometimes when you go to the bathroom and you urinate, for example, after that, small droplets sometimes do come out. And some people, what they do, they rush out, okay, and then do the wudu. The wudu is not accepted, nor is the salah accepted. The wudu is not accepted because small droplets are still coming out. And the salah is not accepted because firstly, the wudu is not accepted, and secondly, because those small droplets are going onto their clothes. So now there's impurity on their clothes. So be very careful when it comes to that. Make sure that it completely stops. And if somebody does wudu, and whilst doing wudu, he breaks his wudu, then he has to start his wudu all over again. The seventh condition, istinja aw istijmarun qabla, cleansing the private parts. Now, I don't know, most brothers here look Somali to me. I don't know how it is in their community, but a lot of brothers from our community, Pakistani, a lot of them think is that, okay, I have to do wudu, so I have to go to the bathroom and I have to do istinja, I have to wash myself. And then they come up. That's not the condition. That's not what is meant by the condition. The condition here is, if you need to go to the toilet, then make sure you wash yourself properly. That is what is meant by the condition. The condition is not, oh, you want to do wudu, so you have to go to the bathroom. No. If you need to do wudu, you don't need to use the bathroom, you can go straight and do the wudu. That's not a problem. And the Shaykh here, he mentioned, or the ulama, they mentioned two ways. The first is istinja, which is, and it's not mentioned here in the translation. Here it just says, cleansing the private parts. Change this to istinja or istijmar. Istinja is cleaning yourself by using water. And istijmar is cleaning yourself by using rocks. And we'll explain that a bit more inshallah. By using rocks. Now, istinja is by washing using water. What part is obligatory? The obligatory part to wash is that area of where that thing comes out from. And if this impurity has gone anywhere else on the body, then you have to wash that part also. Now regarding istijmar using rocks, this is because in the time Prophet ﷺ they used to use rocks. That's why the Prophet ﷺ went to Ahlu Quba, the people of Quba, and he said, Inna Allah yuthni alaykum. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala praises you. Why? Why is Allah praising you? And they said, Inna nutbi'u al-hijarata al-ma. We used to follow using the rocks with using water. That shows that you can use rocks. And in this day and age, it's referring to tissue. It's referring to tissue. So technically you are allowed to use just tissue, as long as it fills three conditions. As long as it fills three conditions. Firstly, the thing which you are using is not something which is smooth. Meaning when you clean yourself, it's not going to spread the impurity. It's going to completely, so like a tissue is fine. It's going to completely remove that impurity. Okay? The second condition is that it has to be a minimum of 3 wipes. فَأَكْثَرْ 3 wipes or more until the area is cleaned. So even after 1 wipe, if it's cleaned, then that's not allowed. It has to be a minimum of 3 times. And the third is that you can only use this as long as the impurity has not gone further than its the area where it normally comes out from. So for example, if thesis comes out and it's gone all over other parts of the body, for example, then you can't use tissue. Then you have to use water. The best is to use water first and then the best is to use tissue first and then water. Okay, like it is in the hadith. That if you want to use tissue again later, that's fine, but that's not for cleaning. That's just for like drying. Okay, but the best is to use tissue first and then water. And then the second best is just water, and then the third is just using tissue or rocks, which is the asl. This is regarding which condition? The 7th condition. Then the 8th condition, the Shaykh mentions, clean water that is permissible to use. In this there are 2 parts. Firstly, the water has to be clean. Change that to being pure. The water has to be pure. And the second, it has to be permissible to use. Now what does it mean by it being pure? Water is of 3 types. Water is of 3 types. The first is tahur. Okay, tahur, not tuhur. Tahur with a fatha and the ta. With a dhamma, that's tuhur, that's the action of doing wudu. Tahur is the water that you actually use. Same with wudu. Wudu is the action, wudu is the water that you use. So tuhur, the second is tahir, and the third is najis. And you can say najis, najas, and najus. All 3 on the jim. So the first is tahur, the second is tahir, and the third is najas. The definition of tahur is that water which is pure in of itself and it makes other things pure. Which is water, it's basically water. Tahir is that water which is pure in of itself, but it does not make other things pure. For example, I don't know, Coke. Is Coke or Pepsi, is that pure? It's pure. If it goes on your thobe, you can still pray. But does it make other things pure? Can you do wudu with it? You can't. Okay? And the last is najis, which is impurity. Like urine and some alcohol, like some ulama say. And other things also. So what type of water from these 3 can you use? Only the first type, tahur. That which is pure in of itself and also makes other things pure. And this is water. Natural water, which comes from with rain, for example, rainwater can be used. Seawater can also be used. And any other water, as long as 3 conditions do not change. 3 things do not change. Which is firstly, the smell. The second, the taste. And the third, the color. My Shaykh al-Masan Qasim, when he taught us this, he taught us an easy way of remembering it. He pointed to his nose, smell, to his mouth, taste, and then to his skin, which is the color. So if you forget what the 3 are, just do that. So smell, taste, and color. And this is, when we refer to these three things, we don't mean something minor, like something really small, a little bit of smell, a little bit of color. That's not what is meant. What is meant is that it's changed so much that you won't even call it water anymore. For example, you have water, you put a tea bag in it. Is that called water anymore? It's not called water. You now have rose water, where the color has changed slightly. It's not called water anymore. It's called rose water. All of these are not allowed. Only water is allowed for you to do wudu. And if you do not have water, then what do? You do tayammum. You do tayammum. Okay. This is regarding the water being pure. And the water being permissible, meaning it's not haram, meaning you've not stolen that water or anything like that. You've, from a halal way, you have gone out and you have purchased that water. And this, the water being permissible, is from the mufradat of the Hanabil. Only the Hanbalis say this. The rest of the ulama say, if the water is not permissible, meaning, let's say, for it's stolen, your wudu is still accepted, but you get sin for it. You're sinful. Because, I don't want to go into the reason, but that's what some of the ulama say. However, the correct opinion, inshallah, is that it has to be permissible water also. This is which condition? Condition number 8. Condition number 9, he says, إِزَالَةُ مَا يَمْنَعُ وُصُولَهُ إِلَى الْبَشَرَةِ, removing all things that prevent the water from reaching the skin. Anything which you have on your skin, and this is talking about the area which is obligatory for you to wash. Okay, so not your shoulder, for example, because you don't have to wash the shoulder. So let's say on my hand, anything, whether it's paint, Tipex, super glue. I don't know, the super glue stops the water. If it stops the water, that's not allowed also. For women, nail varnish. Okay? All of this stops the water from reaching the skin. Now that's the ruling. I'm not sure about super glue. If it does, then that's not allowed also. Okay? Anything, that's the ruling. Anything which stops the water reaching the skin, you have to remove that before doing the wudu. Even if it's hard for you to remove, it doesn't matter. You have to try your best to remove it. Okay? And if somebody does wudu and there's an area there which, let's say he's found that there's Tipex there, then that wudu is not accepted. That wudu is not accepted. So this is very important, especially for the women. Okay, because the women have nail varnish, I don't know, whatever they have on their hands. It stops the water from going there. If they have henna, that's fine. Because henna doesn't stop the water. That just changes the color of the skin. It doesn't stop the water from actually touching the skin. And then finally, the last condition, which is more of an extra condition, he says, number 10, it must be the proper time for it, and this applies for those who have the constant state of ritual impurity. This is not for everybody, okay? Meaning, has Maghrib time started? No. If I have wudu now, you can pray with that, right? The wudu is accepted. Or if I do fresh wudu now, and the Maghrib time comes, you can pray for it. So this is not referring to everybody. This is referring to that person who is always in a constant state where his wudu is being broken. For example, Salāh bowl. This is where a person, it's an illness where always a few drops of urine is coming out throughout the day and he can't stop it. And this is an illness. Or for a woman who is constantly bleeding, but it's not her menstrual cycle. It's called istihadah. Okay? If they're in that state, then for every wudu, for every salah, they have to make fresh wudu after the time has started. After the time has started. This doesn't mean that straight after, okay, I do wudu, 2 minutes later she has to pray. But no, they do wudu and after the time has started, and within that time frame, whatever the beginning and end time of the salah is, she has to pray in that time. The Prophet said to Himna bint Jahsh, فَتَوَضَّئِ لِكُلِّ صَلَاةٍ, and do wudu for every single salah. How does a woman differentiate between these type of bloods? A woman knows. Okay? A woman knows what a general cycle is, how many days it is, and what makes and what is not considered a general cycle. And there's also differences between the two types of blood, in color, in smell, also the flow, the way it comes out. If a woman is unsure exactly which one it is, then a woman, she can tell. If she's unsure, then the asal is that it's hayd. the asl is that it's her menstrual cycle until it becomes clear to her that it's not her menstrual cycle. And if it becomes clear, oh, the past day was actually istihada, she doesn't have to make up that day of Salāh. Because the woman came to the Prophet told her what to do, and the Prophet never told her to make up that Salāh. I can't remember who the Sahabiya was, but the Prophet did not tell her to make up that Salāh. And the same goes for the person who is always droplets of urine is coming out from him. If it's always coming out throughout the whole day, obviously if he does wudu, 2 minutes later it's coming out. We don't tell him to keep doing wudu. We say when the time starts, do fresh wudu, and then pray the Salāh. And then Maghrib time starts, fresh wudu, pray the Salāh. Isha time starts, fresh wudu, and pray the Salāh. Whenever you hear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say, "O you who believe, فَأَرْعِهَا سَمْعَكَ," lend an ear to it. Because either Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to command you to do something which is good, or He's going to tell you to stay away from something which is bad.